someone suggested earlier in the chat that Gneisenau was better on these kind of maps, so the Germans have taken the German Tier 7 battleship Gneisenau, very good brawler, has been buffed a lot recently so that it now actually stands a decent chance against some of the other heavier ships such as Colorado and Nagato, although still much more effective at close range. New Orleans again shown to be a very effective cruiser in these scenarios. Very similar hull and handling characteristics to the Brooklyn, but with a bit more firepower from its AP, very good for fighting other cruisers. Jervis again, a very good destroyer in the hands of skilled pilots, which I think is why both sides will be taking that as their ship. Great concealment, fuel smoke to get away in a pinch, and sonar to help your team be able to notice when the torps are on their way. Similar lineups, although Dutchman is taking Nagato, much more a ranged ship than it is in close quarters, and Vito they're changing actually to go with the King George V. Brooklyn for UKRF's cruiser, and looks like we are about to kick off in just a moment. Yep, saw that there. Homelander mentions Tier 10 carrier choice for Pratt would have been very good, but perhaps a little bit unfair on the other side, given that we are supposed to be in Tier 7. Almost to the start. Depending on how this goes, not sure what the plans are, but we might be seeing slightly higher tiers next time round once the season is over. But we've still got quite a way to go before that happens. Match about to start.
General quarters.
Let's get a view first. So, again, the German fleet is pushing back their King George. Same for the Nagato of UKRF. Has to be careful here when turning the turrets of the Nagato. They can get stuck pointing the wrong way unless you really make the camera point the right way. We might just check actually if he's managed to get that to work properly. Just setting up their initial firing positions. Yep, the turrets are all good. Very good at range here, so I think Nagato will be looking to sit back as far as possible and just do as much damage at range as possible. Looks like Pratt is making the push to the island on the east side of the map as we look at it. You've got the Germans there converging, the New Orleans pushing out in front. You've got the Brooklyn there hiding behind an island. Doesn't really want to get into direct confrontation with the New Orleans from the German fleet. Looks like Pratt's making a little bit of a push out by herself, firing all of the torpedoes there, some of them in single fire, some of them in a bit of a spread. Looks like a good set of hits potentially. No, just about missed on the King George. And looks like the rest of the spread is going to do exactly the same thing. Perhaps one hit on King George there. Yes, one hit to the bows. Damage-wise, looking fairly equally shared, although Nagato they're taking a bit of a hit. About to do some damage back to the King George V. Yep, some good damage there. Very effective AP at range, some big guns on the Nagato. Again, UKRF just pushing back slightly. The Jervis of Pratt being chased by the Jervis of Admiral Lutyens. Let's see what happens using the fuel smoke there, possibly using the torpedoes to give a bit of area denial. Pratt responding very accurately, turning and then returning. But it looks like the New Orleans of Black Wolf is pushing up against Chrissy Boy, who's maintaining his position behind the rock. No cover due to the distance from the rock from perhaps any shots on from King George V. Pratt looks like they might be in a little bit of trouble here. No cruiser support, they're too far away, but using the smoke very effectively, probably just trying to make a run so that they can get back round behind the island before the German destroyer catches up, although no. Perhaps releasing their torpedoes, yep, one wide spread, probably to keep it away. And the New Orleans of Black Wolf on fire, but still going strong. Brooklyn having taken the most damage here for UKRF. Probably the next salvo out from New Orleans is going to be the one that finishes it off. Got to be careful though, Dutchman is turning his ship so that he can get a full broadside. And it's missed the Brooklyn, that might have been its chance to do it. It's giving more broadside to the Nagato. It's probably going to finish off Brooklyn here for Chrissy Boy, which it does, but he's also got to run the risk of all these hits from Nagato, of which there are many. Fair bit of damage, but looks likely to survive. Now Prat pushing in again. Let's see if we can check if they're undetected. Always very useful to know based on what they're going to be doing. On board with Prat here. Looks like going to be making some shots out against King George V, who will be moving, but whether or not they're moving the right way will be seen. Can't see the aiming indicator, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with all these torpedoes. Let's follow them here as they go toward King George V. Battle still going on behind us. He's spotted the torpedoes making the turn, but nice little spread there. Unfortunately not wide enough, I don't think, to make any hits, but definitely making the King George V's life a little bit more difficult. Black Wolf here just kiting away from the Flying Dutchman. Prat's probably going to be making their mind up whether or not they want to start firing to just get rid of that cruiser so that they're on an equal footing in terms of points. Bit of a slower game compared to some. There's not as much direct action, just slowly trying to do the damage. Prat taking a big hit there from New Orleans, got to be careful. Dutchman is pushing in. Admiral Leutchen's there just hiding. Very good sense there by Black Wolf to do some more damage to Jervis. Prat very well avoided most of the shells apart from one which seemed like it was either an over-penetration or a ricochet. Prat low on health, but healing at the same time as Black Wolf and Nagato. See the screen, health going up there. Strangely, the Wolf's not making much of a push to potentially capture the enemy base. Prat's got to be careful here. If she goes the wrong way, she's going to hit all of those torps, but she doesn't. Gives Dutchman the heads up, although looks like Dutchman's still going to take at least one or two of these torpedoes, looking to try and avoid as many as possible. How many is it going to be? 1, 2, 3, 4. Not too many, but ideally didn't want to take any of those. The cruiser and the battleship of the Wolfsrudel team slowly regrouping to focus on Nagato. Again, perhaps you both might be using HE in order to just do the damage slowly through burning. Let's see. Oh, it looks like the New Orleans is actually just biding its time and going undetected for the time being. They're fairly happy with their slight advantage. With the two destroyers, it's definitely Admiral Leutchen's who got the advantage. A full salvo there from Vito doesn't actually make a hit on Prat, although looks like the New Orleans is opening up again. No hits. Got to be careful here for the UKRF team because the Dutchman is making a push as a flank, but he's got Jervis in front of him. Not sure if Jervis is going to have been spotted, so the torpedoes are going to be away. Although Nagato already stopping. A nice overlapping pattern there of the torpedoes. Probably still going to mean he's going to catch one or two. Although he started his reverse while still managing to fire all sets of guns. And very skillfully avoided there by the Flying Dutchman, avoiding all of those torpedoes in that set. But it looks like time's running out, and unfortunately, due to losing one ship, Wolfsrudel are ahead. And it's a win for Wolfsrudel, very good game. New Orleans there doing the most damage for the German team. A lot of the time you will see that the battleships will be the ones doing the most damage, given that most of the time all of the ships are detected. Not many of the cruisers with torpedoes have as much relevance here. Interesting to see the New Orleans with its firepower being top of the damage board. Looks like the map is now sand and sea. No changes for either team at the moment. Just waiting for them to get back into it again. We should be off ready in a moment. So no changes here for either side. Interesting thing about this map is that the battleship and destroyer spawn together and the cruiser spawns by itself. Perfect position for them to play rabbit.
General quarters.
By that we mean drawing the enemy's fire, allowing their teammates to make a flank or a move or look to sit and do some damage over time from another location. Interestingly, both sets of cruisers pushing back now. Chrissy Boy pushing back for UKRF. Both destroyers, almost perfect synchronization where both sets of ships are going. So the Jervis here probably looking to use both sets of islands to get a bit of cover and just sniping with torpedoes the enemy cruisers, who will be very agile and probably well aware that they will be about to be hit by torpedoes at any stage. Thanks Nelson, thanks for joining. Okay, so looks like Chrissy Boy in the Brooklyn took some torpedoes there from Jervis and a bit of damage from the King George V. Pratt sneaking around the edge, about to run into the Jervis of Admiral Leutjens. We'll see what happens, whether or not she's going to go for torpedoes on the destroyer. Very hard to hit these very agile, very manoeuvrable British DDs, or whether or not she's going to press on and look to perhaps snipe some torpedoes on the King George V. King George V, a longer ship than, say, Colorado, which does have a slight benefit of being a bit shorter, although a lot slower to accelerate and decelerate. In terms of avoiding torps, I still think that you've probably got a bit of a better chance in King George V. Some shots go off there, nicely past the Torbit, the island. The Nagato will be firing back, probably the New Orleans. But looks like the Brooklyn is in a little bit of trouble. Most of the shells there going over the top though. And the two destroyers are in a fight. Let's watch this engagement here. Pratt turning away, she's going to be forced to turn back and face the German destroyer there, using AP, both sides. Looks like the Germans have the slight advantage in terms of damage numbers, but they are chasing. Usually it's better to be kiting away. Let's have a look. Oh, Pratt about to make a collision with the island. Not sure that might be a problem. Perhaps got torpedoes, we can't be sure. Leutjens turning away in anticipation of those torpedoes, but they're not coming yet from Pratt. A little bit of a collision there with the island. Can be useful to use the collision mechanics to give yourself a bit of a chance. Leutjens doing it as well, probably looking at the aiming a bit more than where they're going. Trading a lot of damage between each other, but Pratt escapes around the back of the island. Far too far away from the King George V and New Orleans to really have any threat from them as well, so some respite there for Pratt. Very close though. Leutjens isn't going to let Pratt get away with that. They're going to be making a push around one side of the island. Looks like they'll be going round. And we'll have to see, can we work out? Jervis is still detected from Leutjens. Firing one set of torps in anticipation, but we can see, but he can't, that Pratt is well away from where those torpedoes are. As you can see, the gunnery on the British destroyer is fairly effective. 360-degree rear turrets as well makes kiting and turning away to do some damage a lot more easy than on other destroyers. Similar setup to the Gajah-Mada as well. Pratt has to be very careful here, can't afford a one-on-one engagement with the destroyer or in fact any of the other German ships who have the benefit of strong power versus destroyers in the King George V. Leutjens really just trying to do something about Pratt's presence behind this island. Looks like the New Orleans is moving there as well. Covered by the island from the fire of Nagato. Although we begin firing on Chrissy Boy, not detected just yet, I don't think. He starts firing away. Has the advantage of firepower, but runs the risk of sitting perfectly broadside to Nagato. We see Nagato fire on the New Orleans of Black Wolf. We shall see in a couple of moments if a salvo comes flying in. Nothing yet. Torpedoes away from Admiral Leutjens. Single fire torps away from Pratt in the direction of Black Wolf. Doesn't look like it's going to be much. There's the shells from Nagato. Some decent hits. Both teams really hanging back now. Only 1 minute 50 left on the clock. Bit of coverage there using the smoke, fuel smoke, to cover off the New Orleans for a moment. Although that smoke won't hang around for long. Looks like the German team is grouping up slightly, whereas UKRF staying a little bit further apart. And Nagato really struggling in terms of health here. Pratt has the chance to heal. Still lower on health than the Jervis of Admiral Leutjens. Perhaps a lucky torpedo or two could even the battle out. Just going to be waiting for the Jervis to appear. Pratt and Admiral Leutjens making the turn. Got to be careful here of the King George V veto. Pratt has to smoke up, probably knowing that they've been spotted by Admiral Leutjens. HE comes in. Some good hits there, bit of damage to the rudder, but Pratt looks like she's got away. Again, this could very easily be a draw, only 50 seconds left. Pratt won't want to lose it in the final moments. Leutjens can't afford to catch up and be in the crossfire of both the Nagato and the Brooklyn. Brooklyn rushing to Pratt's aid. As exciting as it is, it looks like it's just going to be drawn out for a draw. All enemy ships don't look like they have too little health in order to survive the next 30 or so seconds. Pratt going to rely on her concealment rather than anything else in order to stay alive. 20 seconds left, looks like it's going to be a draw. UKRF slightly lower on damage but still able to stay alive. 12 seconds. Pratt's got to make sure that she stays out of concealment. And a good game, but ultimately ending in a draw. UKRF deciding they didn't have a chance to really make the final push there perhaps and dish out the damage, so deciding to take the draw instead for a point. To anyone who just joined, we're in the final match of the BW44 versus UKRF set of matches for this evening. Next up after this we should have FRSA versus Lords. This might run over very slightly, but we should just be able to catch the next three matches before the end of the evening. Next matchup will be Frozen Shelter's Epicenter map, one of the newer maps to the game. Definitely a very good map if you're into tactical play, capping bases and using islands to a very great effect. There is no time for people camping outside of the play zone. If you don't capture the bases, you will very quickly lose. Unlike domination maps where the cap zones give equal points, the outer ring gives the lowest amount of points, middle even higher, and the centre higher still. I think it spawned us right in the middle of the middle island. So capturing 2 out of 3 will give you an advantage on which 2 out of 3 those are, I believe. But ideally you want to hold at least one in order to be able to be within a chance of staying in the match. lot of these matches tend to end quite prematurely once one team overruns the enemy, sinks a couple of ships and has the numerical advantage to maintain all of the cap zones. You've got to think about where you position your ship, both in terms of firepower and in terms of maintaining the caps. You've got to rely on your team to be all in the same place at once. If you want to take the cap, you always need one more than the enemy does in that area in order to cap. So often teams can hold a cap merely by being there in equal numbers with the enemy. Looks like the Germans have the advantage by getting the first cap, which is the middle ring, though UKRF will be very quickly going and looking to get the outer. Pratt trying to capture the middle of the two. I think the Germans going to let them have it. It'll be interesting to see how this game pans out. UKRF, I think, are going with the shores in order to cause a bit of damage over time, perhaps relying on a bit more fire than perhaps BW44. No destroyer for UKRF this time, 2 cruisers. Again, BW ahead on points. They've captured zones faster, but still gaining points even while they try to capture the middle ring. Centre ring left by itself, having a destroyer does give you that unique advantage. I think those with the destroyers in these situations versus 2 cruisers will always hold the centre cap, as opposed to any of the outer, so it's on UKRF to make up the difference there. Shaw's using HP on New Orleans. UKRF, wow, very good shots there, doing a fair bit of damage to the New Orleans, who's already looking like he's on about 2/3 of his own health. All the torpedoes of Leutjens missed, too low, perhaps thinking that Pratt was going to reverse out of a hiding place and engage. Chrissy Boy now pushing away, doesn't want to get too far out of the cap, has to be careful, trying to remain in gunnery range, but also has to remember to remain able to capture some of the points to maintain their points over time. Again, Black Wolf soaking up most of the damage. Perhaps UKRF thinking if they can at least get the cruiser out of the way, they've got a bit more of a chance in terms of numerical advantage to push and make up some points on the caps. Again, Admiral Leutjens firing single fire torpedoes at Pratt here. Pratt's probably going to notice these coming in just a moment, we'll see. Yeah, Pratt reversing, quite a difficult challenge sometimes when you bow onto these torpedoes to know what to do, but very well held. Took 3 torpedoes, took a flooding, about to take a 4th, but definitely avoided quite a lot of them there. Again, King George V pushing through the centre. Brooklyn and Nagato pushing as well. If Brooklyn can push around with a bit of help from either one of the 2 UKRF ships, they will have a chance to overwhelm the New Orleans. Pratt will be probably in range and seeing it in gun sight range now. The Brooklyn does have smaller calibre but does have more guns, so might be able to overwhelm the New Orleans. Let's see here. Look at all those shells going through, yes. UKRF will know that they have this advantage now. The Jervis Admiral Leutjens there, firing on Chrissy Boy and possibly the Flying Dutchman. Is he going to notice? All he has to do is move back, I think. There we go. The Flying Dutchman's taken out the New Orleans. The Brooklyn is caught on the edge, which looks like it means he's going to take all of the torpedoes. He would have meant to have gone directly back, but he's actually taken the full salvo. What was very much an advantage to UKRF has now become an equal footing again. In terms of points, they've got to be careful. They've got to try and make up these caps. Looks like the King George V of Vito is staying alive quite well. Damage to secondary batteries won't matter there. Very interesting turn of events. I think that Chrissy will be absolutely kicking himself over what just happened. Pratt has to remain hidden a little bit. He's got the only thing he has to worry about too much is the Jervis there. Nagato doesn't really have a chance one-on-one or at range against Jervis. Let's see here, trying to push in the cap. Flying Dutchman's got to be wary. Pratt probably going to push out as well. With only 1 minute 50 left, there's not a lot of chance of UKRF making it up on the points unless they capture their middle as well and hold off all of the BW44 attempts. Looks like these torpedoes are going to be fairly good for heading on the Nagato. No matter where he goes, based on how these torpedoes are going, he's going to take quite a few. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I believe hits there. Perhaps Vito can capitalise on this now. The Shore's firing HE, but AP, sorry, but not doing as much damage against the King George V as they probably would have liked. Quite a bit of damage there. Again, still holding the centre ring. Could ideally be holding perhaps the middle. Are they going to make the break for it? Is Pratt going to think about using torpedoes? No, just focusing the front guns out. Vito's got to make a decision here. Does he go for the Shores? Looks like he does. And he takes out Pratt with a very good, well-timed shot there before Pratt could get back in cover. Now with 50 seconds left, I think the Jervis is going to get brave and look to take out the Flying Dutchman here. A very interesting game, one that was almost in UKRF's favour, but then was cruelly cut short by catching their edge on one of the rock edges up there. Very unfortunate for the UKRF team. Oh. And Admiral Leutjens will probably not be very impressed with his torps, although he catches... No, none of the torpedoes hit there. Although the fire damage is going to be the thing, I believe, that finishes off the Flying Dutchman, King George V there. Second fire and burning down the final UKRF player. A very good game there. Very interesting. Bit of controversy when the Brooklyn Chrissy Boy was unable to reverse out of the way of the torpedoes incoming from Leutjens.